This is the story of a boy who watched his father get humiliated at work. And instead of getting angry, he spent the next 3 years preparing his revenge. But not the kind you'd expect. This is a story about how preparation, intelligence, and character can change everything. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment where you're watching from and your view on the story. Let me tell you a story that changed my heart forever. It's a story about a boy who learned that sometimes the people everyone overlooks are the strongest among us. Picture this, a gleaming office building in downtown Toronto, one of the most expensive real estate developments in all of Canada. The kind of place where everything shines. The floors are so polished you can see your reflection in them. The glass walls seem to go on forever, reflecting the sky and the city below. Inside, there are boardrooms with mahogany tables, leather chairs that cost more than a car, and a view that stretches all the way to Lake Ontario. This is where our story begins. Every morning, before the sun comes up, before anyone else arrives at the office, a man named Marcus walked through those doors with a mop and a bucket. Marcus was 52 years old. He had worked in that building for almost 9 years. He was invisible to most people. Not because he did anything wrong, but because that's what happens in the world sometimes. People who serve others, who work with their hands, they become part of the background. They blend into the walls. Marcus had a son named David. David was 22 years old, and he was nothing like his father in the way that matters most to other people. David was smart, really smart. He was in his final year at university, studying international business and languages. He could speak 4 languages fluently: English, Spanish, Mandarin Chinese, and French. But here's the thing that makes this story so important. David had worked so hard to become this person. He wasn't born into money or connections. He worked for it. Every morning, Marcus would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He'd make himself a simple breakfast, usually just toast and coffee, and he'd head out into the darkness. David would be asleep, exhausted from working the night shift at a local diner to pay for his university fees. Marcus would work all day, cleaning those offices, being polite to everyone, asking about their families, listening to their problems. And then he'd come home, shower, have a quick meal with David when they saw each other, and go to bed so he could do it all again tomorrow. They didn't have much. Their apartment was small and quiet. There was no fancy furniture or expensive decorations. But there was love. There was respect. There was pride in work done well, no matter how small that work seemed to others. David loved his father. Sometimes, when David was studying languages late at night, Marcus would sit with him and listen to his son practice. Marcus didn't understand the Chinese words or the Spanish sentences, but he understood his son's dedication. He understood the hunger in David's voice when he practiced, the determination in his eyes. "Dad," David said one night, looking up from his textbook. "One day, I'm going to do something big. I'm going to make sure we never have to worry about money again. I'm going to make sure you never have to clean offices again if you don't want to." Marcus had smiled and put his hand on his son's shoulder. "Son, I'm already proud of you. Whether you become the president or stay in school forever, I'm proud. But I know you're going to do amazing things. I can see it in you." Now, the company that owned the building where Marcus worked was called Wellington and Associates. It was a real estate and investment firm, and it was huge. The offices took up 10 floors of the building. The owners were wealthy men in their 50s and 60s. They wore expensive suits and expensive watches. They made deals that were worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The vice president of Wellington and Associates was a man named Derek Simmons. Derek was 45 years old, and he was the kind of person who loved to make other people feel small. He wasn't just competitive, he was mean about it. He believed that people were divided into 2 groups: those who deserved to be at the top, and those who didn't. And according to Derek, people like Marcus didn't deserve much of anything. Now, something important was about to happen. Wellington and Associates was about to make the biggest deal of its history. A wealthy businessman from Hong Kong, a man named Mr. Liu, was coming to Toronto to negotiate a massive investment deal. Mr. Liu wanted to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into Toronto real estate and development. If this deal went through, it would make Wellington and Associates incredibly wealthy. If it didn't, well, the company would survive, but they'd miss out on changing their entire future. Everything was being prepared. The boardroom was being cleaned. Special catering was arranged. Expensive bottles of wine were being brought in. And then, the day before Mr. Liu was supposed to arrive, something went wrong. Something terrible. The interpreter who was supposed to translate between Mr. Liu and the company. He got into a car accident. He called from the hospital and said he couldn't make it. He was injured. He was sorry, but there was nothing he could do. The office erupted into panic. This was a disaster. Mr. Liu only spoke Mandarin Chinese and a little bit of English. The executives at Wellington and Associates didn't speak any Chinese at all. They tried to hire another interpreter, but it was too late. No one was available on such short notice. Derek Simmons was in the office that morning, and when he heard the news, he laughed. Actually laughed. He didn't laugh because he thought it was funny. He laughed because it gave him an idea. An idea that would let him do what he loved to do. Make someone else feel small. The day arrived. Mr. Liu walked into the boardroom at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. He was a dignified man in his 60s, with gray hair and intelligent eyes. He wore a perfectly tailored suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing. Derek was already there, waiting. He had a smile on his face, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made your stomach hurt. Marcus was in the hallway outside the boardroom, doing his job, cleaning the floor as he did every day. And David had come to pick up his father after his morning shift. He was standing near the hallway, reading a textbook, waiting for Marcus to finish. The meeting started, and almost immediately, Mr. Liu began to speak. He spoke in Mandarin, gesturing as he talked. The executives around the table looked at each other with panic in their eyes. None of them understood a single word. Derek watched this happen, and his smile grew wider. He stood up and walked toward the hallway, where Marcus was working. "Marcus," Derek called out, loud enough that everyone in the boardroom could hear. "Come here for a minute. We need your help with something." Marcus looked up, confused. He put down his cleaning supplies and walked toward the boardroom. Derek pointed at Mr. Liu, who was still speaking in Mandarin. "We need a translator," Derek said, and now his voice was dripping with sarcasm. "I'm guessing someone who cleans offices for a living probably speaks Chinese, right? All you working-class people probably know all kinds of languages, don't you?" The executives around the table started to laugh. It was nervous laughter, uncomfortable laughter, but it was laughter nonetheless. Mr. Liu stopped speaking. He looked at Derek with confusion, and then with something that looked like disgust. Marcus felt his face burn with shame. He knew what was happening. He was being made fun of. In front of his boss, in front of these important people, he was being treated like he was stupid. "I'm sorry, sir," Marcus said quietly, looking down at his hands. "I only speak English. I don't know Chinese." "Of course you don't," Derek laughed. "But you know what? I have an idea. Let's make this fun. I'll make you a bet, Marcus. If you can translate even one sentence of what Mr. Liu is saying, I'll give you my job. How does that sound? You could be a vice president. Imagine that." The laughter around the table got louder. The idea was ridiculous to them. A janitor becoming a vice president? A man without a college degree, without connections, without the right family background? It was the most hilarious thing they'd ever heard. But then something happened that changed everything. David, standing in the hallway with his textbook, had heard every word. He had understood exactly what was happening. His father was being humiliated. The man who had worked so hard, who had sacrificed so much so that David could have a better life, was being treated like he was nothing. David's hands clenched into fists. His heart began to pound in his chest. He looked at his father's face, and he saw the hurt there. The quiet, deep hurt that came from years of being treated as less than human. David made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything. He took a deep breath, closed his textbook, and walked toward the boardroom door. His hands were trembling, but not from fear. From determination. From a quiet, burning anger that had been building inside him for a very long time. He knocked on the door. Derek looked up, annoyed. "Who is this?" "This is a private meeting." "My name is David Chun," he said, his voice steady and calm. "I'm here as a professional translator and international business consultant." The entire room went silent. Derek's smile faded. David stood in the doorway of that boardroom, and I want you to understand what was happening in that moment. A young man, 22 years old, the son of a janitor, was about to walk into a room where some of the most powerful people in Toronto were gathered. These were people who had built their lives on assumptions about who belonged in rooms like this and who didn't. And David was about to shake everything they believed to its core. Derek stared at David for a long moment. His face showed confusion, then recognition, then anger. "Wait a minute," Derek said slowly. "Aren't you the janitor's son?" The kid who's always here with your father? I am, David replied, stepping fully into the boardroom. He didn't ask for permission. He just walked in. And I'm here because Mr. Liu deserves professional service, and because I overheard a bet being made that needs to be honored. Mr. Liu looked at David with curiosity. He studied the young man's face, his posture, his calm confidence. There was something different about this person. David turned to Mr. Liu and began to speak in Mandarin. His pronunciation was perfect. His tone was respectful. His words were carefully chosen. Mr. Liu, I sincerely apologize for the disrespectful environment you have encountered today. I am David Chen, and I have come to provide professional translation services so that we can conduct our business with the dignity and professionalism that you deserve. Mr. Liu's entire face changed. For the first time since he'd arrived in that boardroom, he smiled. A real smile. Not a polite one, but a genuine smile of relief and recognition. Finally, Mr. Liu said in Mandarin, someone who speaks my language properly. Where are you from? Your Mandarin is exceptional. I'm from Toronto, Mr. Liu, David replied in fluent Mandarin. But I have dedicated the last several years to mastering Mandarin and learning about Chinese business culture and protocols. I specialize in negotiations between Chinese and North American companies. The executives in the room were stunned. William Thompson, the owner of Wellington and Associates, looked like he might fall out of his chair. Derek stood up abruptly. Okay, wait, he said, pointing at David. You're telling me that the janitor's kid has been working here with his father, and nobody told me he speaks Chinese? This is absurd. William, you can't seriously consider using this person as a translator. He's not even a professional. He's a university student who cleans offices. He's a university student who speaks perfect Mandarin, William said slowly, and you could hear the gears turning in his mind as he realized the opportunity in front of him. David remained calm. He had been preparing for this moment. Not this exact moment, but some moment like it. For 3 years, while his father cleaned offices at 5 o'clock in the morning, David had been studying. Every single day. He'd wake up, study for 2 hours before his classes, then go to university, then work his night shift at the diner, then come home and study some more. His roommate at university used to ask him, David, why do you study so hard? Why do you push yourself like this? You already get good grades. You already speak 4 languages. And David would say, because one day, I'm going to get an opportunity that most people never get. And when that day comes, I need to be ready. I need to be so prepared, so competent, so undeniably excellent that nobody can say no to me. That day had come. Let me ask you something, Mr. Liu, David said, continuing in Mandarin. He raised his son. What did you say before I entered that success should be used to help others? What was your first impression of this company? That's a legacy worth leaving. Mr. Liu looked at Derek. That's a life worth back living. At David. Thank you for listening to speak in Mandarin. If it touched your heart, if it inspired you, please share it with others. Mr. Liu began, because this message David began to translate that we all have potential. That I was deeply disappointed with the lack of professionalism at this company. This message needs to spread. I expected to find serious business partners. Needs to reach the young people, but instead I found an environment where employees are publicly humiliated for the entertainment of arrogant executives who have no respect for human dignity. Derek's face went white. Mr. Liu continued, I said that I grew up poor in Hong Kong. My mother worked as a housekeeper for wealthy families to pay for my education. She taught me that dignity is something nobody can take from you, no matter how much money they have. And I will never, ever do business with people who treat workers as objects of amusement. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. David translated every word, making sure his tone conveyed the seriousness of what Mr. Liu was saying. I also said, Mr. Liu continued, that I would cancel this entire deal and take my business elsewhere unless someone in this company demonstrated real competence and real respect in the next 10 minutes. William Thompson looked like he might be having a heart attack. This was it. This was the moment where everything could fall apart. Derek started to speak. This is ridiculous. You can't just show up and... Actually, David interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. I can. You made a public bet. You said that if anyone could translate what Mr. Liu was saying, you would give that person your job. I have now translated every word that Mr. Liu has spoken since entering this room. I have witnesses to your bet. And I have documentation of everything you said. David pulled his cell phone out of his pocket and showed Derek a recording. I recorded you, Derek. I recorded your bet. I recorded you humiliating my father. Everything is documented. Derek's face turned red. You can't record private business meetings. That's illegal. A business meeting in a company with multiple witnesses, which includes a client, David said calmly, is not private. And I can absolutely record it. My lawyer has already confirmed this. David had prepared for this moment in every way possible. He had studied not just languages and business, but also law. He had learned everything he possibly could about how to present himself in moments like this. But then something unexpected happened. Mr. Liu stood up. He walked over to David and looked at him closely. "Are you the janitor's son?" he asked in Mandarin. "Yes, sir," David replied in Mandarin. "My father, Marcus, he works here. He's been working here for 9 years." Mr. Liu nodded slowly. "You remind me of my own mother," he said. "She had that same quiet strength. That same dignity in the face of disrespect. Tell me, did you plan this? Did you study all of this specifically to be here in this moment?" David was honest. "No, sir. I didn't know Mr. Liu would be here today. But 3 years ago, I made a decision. I decided that I was going to prepare myself so thoroughly, so completely, that when an opportunity came, any opportunity, I would be ready to take it. Because I knew that if I studied hard enough, if I worked hard enough, if I prepared hard enough, then luck and timing and opportunity would eventually work in my favor." Mr. Liu smiled. It was the kind of smile that comes from understanding something deep and true about how the world works. "I have an offer," Mr. Liu said, speaking to David but loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. "I will proceed with the investment deal with Wellington and Associates. But there are 2 conditions. First, Derek Simmons must be terminated immediately. A company that tolerates this kind of behavior is not a company I want to partner with. Second, David Chun will become my official representative for all business dealings with this company. He will oversee all communications, all negotiations, all contracts." William Thompson looked at Derek and then at David. "You heard the man. Derek, you're fired." Derek's entire world collapsed in that moment. He stood there, holding nothing but his wounded pride. "This is ridiculous," Derek muttered, but his voice had no power anymore. Nobody was listening to him. David pulled out a folder from his backpack. "I also noticed an error in your contract, Mr. Liu," David said, showing him a sheet of paper. "On page 37, the yuan conversion to Canadian dollars is slightly inaccurate. It looks like a small mistake, but in Chinese business culture, precision is essential. Attention to detail is a sign of respect." Mr. Liu examined the document. His eyes widened. "You caught that? How is that possible?" "Because I studied not just your language, Mr. Liu, but your entire culture. Your business practices. Your values. Your expectations. When you're serious about success, you can't just learn the surface of things. You have to understand the depth." Mr. Liu laughed. It was a laugh of pure admiration. This young man has saved this company from a catastrophic failure, and now he's also saving my company from a financial error. Impressive. Very impressive. Marcus had been standing in the hallway the whole time, watching through the glass walls. He had watched his son stand up. He had watched his son speak with confidence and intelligence and grace. He had watched his son take everything that Derek Simmons had tried to use to humiliate him and turn it into power. For the first time in a very long time, Marcus let himself cry. Not from sadness, but from pride. I need to pause here and tell you something about what was happening in David's heart during all of this. You see, this wasn't just about winning a bet or getting a job. This was about something much deeper. This was about every moment David had sacrificed. Every night he had spent studying instead of going out with friends. Every weekend he had worked at the diner instead of relaxing. Every morning he had woken up early to practice languages instead of sleeping in. Every time he had felt doubt creeping in, wondering if it was all worth it, if he was crazy for pushing himself so hard. In that boardroom, David finally had his answer. Yes, it was all worth it. But here's what's important to understand about this moment. David wasn't celebrating his victory yet. He was thinking about his father. He was thinking about all the people like his father who worked hard every single day, who did their jobs with dignity and respect, but who were treated like they were invisible or less than human. Derek Simmons was escorted out of the building by security. He carried nothing with him but his shock and his shame. His career, which he had spent 20 years building, was essentially over. No one in Toronto's business community wanted to work with someone who had been fired in such a spectacular way. The story of what happened would spread through the business world like wildfire. Derek would become known as the man who humiliated a janitor in front of a major investor, and then got fired by his own company as a result. But David didn't feel happy about Derek's destruction. He felt sad. He understood that Derek had made terrible choices, but he also understood that Derek was a human being, just like everyone else. After the meeting concluded and Mr. Liu had signed the initial investment agreements with William Thompson, Mr. Liu asked to speak with David privately. They went into a smaller conference room, and Mr. Liu sat down across from David. "I want to know the truth," Mr. Liu said in Mandarin. "How did you really become so fluent in Mandarin? How did you know what I was saying? Most importantly, why did you do this? You could have just walked past that boardroom and not gotten involved." David took a breath. He decided to tell Mr. Liu the complete truth. 3 years ago, when I was 19 years old, I came to pick up my father from work. I heard Derek Simmons talking to another executive. They were laughing about how the cleaning staff could never amount to anything. How people like my father would never be able to afford a decent life. How ambition was wasted on people without the right background. David's voice was steady as he spoke, but his emotion was clear. That same day, my father came home and told me about something Derek had said to him. Derek had told him, "You know, Marcus, I'm glad you understand your place. People like you who know they can't do anything better for themselves are at least useful. You work hard because you know you don't have options. It's good to see." My father didn't let it hurt him, but I could see the pain in his eyes. David paused. I decided that day that I was going to prove that Derek was wrong. Not just for my father, but for every person who has been made to feel small by someone who thought money or connections made them better. I started studying Mandarin that week. I researched the Asian markets. I learned about Chinese business culture. And I kept telling myself, one day, there will be an opportunity. And when that day comes, I will be ready. And today was that day, Mr. Liu said. Yes, David said. But I want to be clear about something, Mr. Liu. I wasn't trying to destroy Derek or make him feel the way he made my father feel. I was trying to prove that competence matters. That dignity matters. That working hard and preparing yourself can change your life. The fact that Derek lost his job, that's not because I wanted revenge. It's because his own actions caught up with him. Mr. Liu nodded slowly. You know something? Your mother would have liked you. My mother, she had the same kind of wisdom. She used to say, the best revenge is not to hurt those who hurt you. The best revenge is to become so successful, so excellent, so undeniably valuable that they become irrelevant. That's what my father taught me, David said. My father has never said a single bad word about Derek Simmons, even though Derek has been cruel to him many times. My father just keeps doing his job with excellence. He keeps being kind to everyone. He keeps his dignity. He told me once, son, the moment I let someone else's cruelty turn me into a cruel person, then they've won. I refuse to give them that power. Mr. Liu smiled. This is the kind of integrity that I want to work with. This is the kind of character I want my company to be associated with. Tell me, David, what are your ambitions? What do you want to do with your life? David thought about this carefully. I want to help companies communicate across cultures. I want to make sure that business deals don't fall apart because of misunderstandings. And I want to prove that the people who clean offices, who work in diners, who do the jobs that society doesn't value, they have just as much potential as anyone else. They're just usually too busy surviving to have the luxury of preparing for opportunity. I have a proposal, Mr. Liu said. My company is expanding into North America. I need someone to represent my interests here. Someone who understands both the Chinese business world and the North American world. Someone with integrity and competence. I want you to be my representative. I'll pay you a salary of $200,000 per year, plus benefits, plus a bonus structure based on the success of our deals. David's eyes widened. $200,000. That was more money than he had ever dreamed of. That was generational wealth for his family. That was security and safety and opportunity. But there's a condition, Mr. Liu continued. You must finish your university degree. Education is not just about getting a job. It's about developing yourself as a person. And you must promise me that you will help other young people like yourself. Young people with ambition, but without connections. You will help them prepare themselves for their opportunities. I promise, David said immediately. Mr. Liu, I don't even know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Mr. Liu said. Thank your father. He raised a son with character and integrity. That's worth more than all the money in the world. Later that day, after all the meetings had concluded, David walked out of the building with his father. They walked slowly, neither of them saying much at first. They just walked together through downtown Toronto, with the sun beginning to set and the city lights starting to come on. Finally, Marcus spoke. Son, what you did today. I've never been more proud of you. But I also want you to understand something. You did that for me, didn't you? Yes, David said honestly. I did. I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years, Dad. Ever since Derek said those things about you. Marcus stopped walking and turned to his son. He put his hands on David's shoulders. I appreciate that, David. I truly do. But I want you to hear me when I say this. You don't ever need to prove your worth to me. You are already valuable. You are already excellent. You are already worthy of respect and love. Not because of what you did today, but simply because you exist. Simply because you are my son. David felt tears in his eyes. I know, Dad, but I needed to prove it to other people. I needed to show that people like us, people from families like ours, we're not less than. We're not limited. We're not destined to be invisible. And you did that, Marcus said. You did that beautifully. But now I want to tell you something important. Your success is not about destroying people like Derek. Your success is about building something greater than the system that tried to limit us both. They started walking again, and David told his father about Mr. Liu's offer. He told him about the salary, the benefits, the opportunity to represent a major international company. Marcus listened, and when David finished, Marcus smiled. This is good, son. This is very good. But I have one request. Anything, Dad. Use this opportunity to help others. Use this position to prove that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if your father cleans offices. It doesn't matter if you work in a diner to pay for school. What matters is your character, your work ethic, and your determination. You can change 1,000 lives, David, if you remember where you came from. David promised his father that he would. And he meant it with all his heart. 6 months had passed since that day in the boardroom at Wellington and Associates. 6 months had changed everything about David's life, and about his father's life as well. David had finished his final year at university while working as Mr. Liu's representative for his North American expansion. He had graduated with honors, giving the commencement speech at his university, where he talked about his father, about the importance of hard work and preparation, and about the responsibility that comes with success. Mr. Liu's investment in Toronto had been successful. The first real estate development project had been completed on time and under budget. Mr. Liu was so impressed with David's work that he had promoted him to the position of Vice President of North American Operations. At 23 years old, David was now overseeing a team of 30 people and managing investments worth over $400 million. But the most important change was what had happened to Marcus. Marcus no longer worked as a janitor. Mr. Liu had offered Marcus a position in his company as well. Marcus was now working as a quality and standards manager. His job was to make sure that all of Mr. Liu's business operations in Canada maintained the highest standards of professionalism and ethical conduct. Marcus had found a new passion in this work. He was good at it, remarkably good at it, because he understood what it meant to work with dignity. He understood what it meant to be treated with respect. And more importantly, Marcus was finally getting paid what he was worth. His salary was more than triple what he had been making as a janitor. He and David moved out of their small apartment and into a nice house in a quiet neighborhood. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt secure. He didn't worry about how he would pay the bills. He didn't lie awake at night thinking about unexpected expenses. He could breathe. But David hadn't forgotten his promise to his father. He hadn't forgotten what Mr. Liu had asked him to do. David started a program called The Prepared Mind. It was a free program for young people from low-income backgrounds. The program taught languages, business skills, cultural competency, and personal development. David taught many of the classes himself. He would stand in front of rooms full of young people, kids like he had been, and he would tell them his story. I am not special because I come from a rich family, David would say. I am not special because I had connections or advantages that you don't have. I am special because I decided that I was going to prepare myself so thoroughly that when opportunity came, I would be ready. You can do the same thing. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your parents do. What matters is that you decide today, right now, that you are going to work for your future, that you are going to study, that you are going to prepare yourself, that you are going to be so excellent that nobody can ignore you. Hundreds of young people went through David's program. Some of them went on to university. Some of them got better jobs. Some of them started their own businesses. David didn't just teach them languages and business skills. He taught them self-respect. He taught them that their dreams were worth fighting for. He taught them what his father had taught him, that dignity is something that nobody can take away from you, no matter how much money they have or what position they hold. One day, David was at his office when someone came to see him. It was Derek Simmons. Derek looked different than he had 6 months ago. His expensive suit was no longer expensive. His hair had more gray in it. His face looked tired and worn down. He had aged years in just 6 months. "I wanted to see you," Derek said quietly. "I wanted to apologize." David gestured for Derek to sit down. They sat in David's office, with a view of the Toronto skyline spreading out before them. The view that Derek had once enjoyed from his office, before David had taken his job. "I've had a lot of time to think," Derek continued. "I've had a lot of time to regret my actions. I've been looking for work for 6 months, and nobody will hire me. Do you know what I realized? That I was right when I said some people don't deserve to be in important positions. But I wasn't talking about your father or people like him. I was talking about myself. I didn't deserve the position I had because I didn't have the character for it. I used my position to make other people feel small. That's not leadership. That's just cruelty." David listened without interrupting. "I came here to ask you something," Derek said. "Is there any way I could work for you? I know I have no right to ask this. I know I probably don't deserve a second chance. But I've learned something. I've learned what it feels like to be treated the way I treated your father. And I don't ever want to feel that way again. If you're willing, I would like to work in your program. I would like to teach young people about the importance of integrity and respect. I would like to try to undo some of the harm that I've done." David thought about this carefully. He thought about what his father would do. His father, who had never said a single cruel word about Derek, even when Derek had hurt him. "You can work in my program," David said finally. "But you understand that you'll be starting at the bottom. You'll be working with young people, listening to their stories, helping them prepare themselves. You won't have any authority or special position. You'll just be part of the team. That's all I'm asking for," Derek said. And David believed him. Derek became part of David's program. He worked there for several years, until he eventually found work at another company. But those years working in the program changed Derek's life as much as they changed the lives of the young people in the program. Derek learned what his employers had never learned, what society had never taught him. That true success is not about power over others. True success is about becoming the best version of yourself and using that excellence to help others become the best versions of themselves. David created a foundation with his own money. The foundation provided scholarships to young people who couldn't afford university. It provided mentorship and guidance. It provided hope. And it was all built on a very simple idea, that competence and character have no color, no background, no family name. That preparation creates opportunity. That dignity is non-negotiable. Years passed. David became one of the most respected business leaders in Canada. He wrote books about international business and cultural competency. He gave speeches. He appeared on television shows and podcasts. But through all of this success, all of this recognition, David never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his father cleaning offices. He never forgot the humiliation that his father had endured. He never forgot the promise he had made to help others. Mr. Liu became not just David's employer, but his mentor and friend. The two of them built a business empire together that eventually expanded into 20 countries. They made billions of dollars, but more importantly, they built a company that was known for treating its employees with respect and dignity. They built a company where people from any background could rise to any position, based purely on their merit and their character. And Marcus? Marcus remained in his position as quality and standards manager. He eventually retired, and when he retired, he had a pension that would take care of him for the rest of his life. He had a son who loved him and respected him. He had grandchildren, eventually. And most importantly, he had lived to see the world change just a little bit because of the values he had taught his son. That dignity matters, that hard work matters, that character matters. Let me bring you back to where our story began, because this is where the real meaning of everything we've talked about comes into focus. It's been 12 years since David walked into that boardroom and changed everything. David is now 34 years old, and he's built a life that most people would only dream about. But if you were to ask David what he values most in his life, he wouldn't tell you about the money or the titles or the respect from the business world. He would tell you about the time he spends with his father. Every Sunday, David and Marcus have breakfast together. Just the two of them sitting at a table talking about the week, about life, about their dreams and their challenges. Marcus is now in his mid-70s. He's retired and spending his days doing the things he always wanted to do. He volunteers at a local community center, teaching older adults how to use computers. He spends time with his grandchildren. He reads books. He takes long walks along the lake. He has finally been able to slow down and enjoy his life. You know what I was thinking about the other day? Marcus said to David one Sunday morning, as they sat with their coffee and toast, just like they used to do years ago, except now they were sitting at a nice kitchen table in a nice house, instead of in a small apartment. "What's that, Dad?" David asked. "I was thinking about that morning when you walked into that boardroom. I was standing in the hallway, thinking that my whole life was about to get worse. I thought Derek was going to humiliate me in front of everyone. I thought I was going to lose my job. I was scared, David. Really scared." David reached across the table and squeezed his father's hand. "But then you walked in," Marcus continued, "and I watched my son stand up for me. I watched my son use everything he had worked for, everything he had prepared himself for, and he did it with grace and intelligence and strength. And I realized something in that moment, David. I realized that I had done something right as a father. I had raised a son who understood that real strength comes from lifting others up, not from pushing them down." "Dad," David said, his voice thick with emotion, "I wouldn't be anything without you. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, it all comes from you. You taught me about dignity. You taught me about hard work. You taught me that it doesn't matter what other people think of you. What matters is knowing who you are and being proud of that." Marcus smiled. "I know, son, but I want you to understand something. I want you to understand that my cleaning those offices, working those jobs that people look down on, that wasn't a failure. That wasn't something I needed to be rescued from. That was my life, and I lived it with dignity. I took pride in my work. I treated people with respect. I was a good man doing honest work. That was enough for me. I know, Dad. I understand that now. The beautiful part," Marcus said, "is that now you've had the opportunity to do more. You've had the opportunity to build something bigger. But you never forgot where you came from. You never pretended that you were better than people who work with their hands. You never looked down on people in the position you started in. That's the real success, David. Not the money, not the titles, but the fact that you've stayed true to who you are." That conversation, like so many of their conversations, stuck with David. It reminded him why he did what he did. It reminded him why he worked so hard to help other young people. It reminded him that success isn't just about individual achievement. Success is about contribution. It's about legacy. David's foundation had now helped over 5,000 young people get education and training. Many of them had gone on to become teachers, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs. Many of them had started their own foundations and paid the help forward, just like David had done. The ripple effect of David's work was spreading out into the world, touching lives that David himself would never even know about. But David's greatest pride was in the Prepared Mind program. This program had expanded to 15 cities across Canada. It operated in community centers, libraries, and schools. It was completely free. Any young person from a low-income background could enroll. They could learn languages, business skills, personal development, all while being surrounded by mentors and teachers who believed in them and saw their potential. David ran into one of the graduates of his program at a coffee shop one day. Her name was Sarah, and she had gone through the program 8 years earlier, when she was 16 years old. Sarah was working as a translator for the United Nations. She was changing the world in her own way, using the skills and confidence that she had gained in the program. "David," Sarah said, giving him a warm hug, "I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to tell you that my life would have been completely different without your program. I was going to drop out of school. My family was so poor, and I didn't think there was any point in continuing. But then I came to your program, and I learned that I could do more. I learned that my circumstances didn't define me. I learned that I could prepare myself for a better future." David listened, and he felt that same warm pride that he had felt when his father had told him he was proud of him. This was what it was all about. This was the real victory. Years later, David made a decision that surprised many people in the business world. At 38 years old, with his career at its peak, David decided to step back from his position as Vice President of Operations. He wanted to focus on his foundation and his program. He wanted to dedicate his time to helping young people. Mr. Liu understood completely. "You're making the right choice," Mr. Liu told him. When I was your age, I was making millions of dollars, but I was miserable. I didn't know why. It took me years to understand that money without purpose is empty. But you understand this, young. You understand that real wealth is the ability to help others. That's wisdom, David. That's true success. David didn't leave the business world completely. He remained on Mr. Liu's company board, consulted for major international deals, and advised other business leaders on cultural competency and ethical business practices. But his main focus became his foundation and his program. He hired a team of people to help run the program. He hired people like Derek Simmons had become, people who had made mistakes and learned from them, people who understood the value of second chances. He hired young people who had been through the program themselves and who wanted to pay it forward. He created a culture where everybody was valued, where everybody's voice mattered, where everybody was treated with respect and dignity. One day, David was invited to give a keynote speech at a major international business conference. The theme of the conference was leadership and ethics in the modern world. There were thousands of business leaders in the audience, CEOs of major corporations, investors, entrepreneurs, politicians. David stood on that stage, looking out at all those powerful people, and he told them his story. He told them about his father. He told them about Derek Simmons. He told them about Mr. Liu. He told them about the young people in his program. And then he told them something that made many people in that room uncomfortable. I've learned something over the years, David said. I've learned that true leadership is not about how much money you make or how many people you have power over. True leadership is about how you treat people who can't do anything for you. It's about how you treat the person who cleans your office. It's about how you treat the person who delivers your mail. It's about how you treat the people who society has decided are less important than you. He paused, letting his words settle in. Every single person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That doesn't mean everybody gets the same job or the same position. It means that everybody is treated as a human being. It means that you don't use your power to make people feel small. It means that you recognize that the person you're looking down on might have a child at home who is studying to change the world. It means that you understand that circumstances don't determine a person's worth. The room was very quiet. I'm standing here today because my father taught me about dignity. My father was a janitor, and he was better at his job than most vice presidents I've known were at theirs. He did his work with excellence and grace, not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because he believed that everything worth doing is worth doing well. That's the example I want to set for you. That's the kind of leadership we need in this world. That speech spread across the internet. It was watched by millions of people. It sparked conversations about class, about dignity, about what real success means. David didn't set out to become a voice for social change, but that's what happened. He became known as the business leader who was willing to talk about the things that most business leaders were too uncomfortable to discuss. But David remained grounded. He remained connected to his roots. He never let fame or attention change who he was. When Marcus was 80 years old, he started to slow down. His health wasn't as good as it had been. He still went on long walks with David, but now they walked more slowly. They rested more often. They talked more about memories, about the past, about what their lives had meant. One autumn afternoon, as they were walking along the lake, Marcus said to David, "I'm proud of what you've done with your life, son. But I want you to know something. I'm prouder of who you are than what you've done. Your character, your kindness, your integrity. That's what matters. That's what will last." "I know, Dad," David said. "I learned that from you." Marcus looked out at the lake, at the sun beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Marcus said quietly. "I think about Derek Simmons, and I wonder if he ever learned what I learned. I wonder if he ever understood that there's no real power in making other people feel small. The only real power is in how you treat people, in the legacy you leave behind." "Derek learned," David said. "It took him a while, but he learned. He's teaching now, you know. He volunteers with my program. He helps young people understand that their circumstances don't define their future." Marcus smiled. "That makes me glad. That means something good came from all of it." Years continued to pass. Marcus eventually passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family, knowing that he had lived a good life, a meaningful life. He had worked hard. He had raised a son who had changed the world. He had seen his son use his success to help others. He had seen the world become just a little bit more fair, just a little bit more kind, because of the values he had instilled in his son. David gave a eulogy at his father's funeral that moved everyone in the room to tears. He spoke about his father's dignity, his strength, his kindness. He spoke about how his father had been his inspiration and his teacher. He spoke about how the most valuable thing his father had ever given him wasn't money or connections. It was the knowledge that you can live a good life by being a good person. After his father's death, David worked even harder in his foundation and his program. He established a scholarship in his father's name, the Marcus Chin Dignity and Excellence Scholarship. This scholarship would provide financial support and mentorship to young people from low-income backgrounds who wanted to study international business and languages. It would help create the next generation of leaders who understood that success should be used to lift others up. The scholarship has now helped hundreds of young people. Many of them have gone on to become leaders in their own right, carrying forward the values that Marcus and David had taught them. Today, David is in his early 40s. His business has continued to grow. His foundation has expanded to new countries. His program has touched the lives of tens of thousands of young people. He's written multiple books that are used in universities and business schools. He's consulted for governments on international trade and cultural diplomacy. He's won awards and recognition from around the world. But if you ask David what he's most proud of, he'll tell you about a young man named Samuel. Samuel came through David's program when he was 17 years old. Samuel came from an extremely poor background. His mother worked 2 jobs, and his father had abandoned the family. Samuel was angry and bitter about his circumstances. He didn't believe that hard work mattered. He didn't believe that people like him could ever get ahead. But David saw something in Samuel. David saw potential. David saw a young man who, if given the right tools and the right belief in himself, could change his life. David personally mentored Samuel for 3 years. He taught him languages. He taught him business skills. But more importantly, he taught him about dignity and self-respect. He taught him that his circumstances were not his fault, but his future was his responsibility. Samuel studied hard. He graduated from high school with honors. He got a full scholarship to university. He graduated with a degree in international relations. He now works for a non-profit organization helping refugees integrate into their new countries. He's making a difference in the world. When Samuel came to David to thank him, David just smiled and said, "You did this, Samuel. You made the choice to prepare yourself. You made the choice to work hard. I just believed in you." "No," Samuel said. "You did more than that. You showed me that someone cared. You showed me that my life mattered. You showed me that I could be more than my circumstances. That changed everything." This is the real legacy of David's story. It's not about one man becoming successful. It's about one man using his success to change other people's lives. It's about the ripple effect of kindness, of belief, of support. It's about understanding that we're all connected, and that when we lift others up, we're actually lifting ourselves up as well. David still has breakfast with his father's grave every Sunday. He sits there and he talks to his father, and he tells him about the young people he's helping. He tells him about the challenges he's facing. He tells him about his victories and his failures. And he thanks him for everything he taught him. "Thank you for showing me that dignity is worth everything," David says at his father's grave. "Thank you for showing me that hard work matters. Thank you for showing me that character is everything. I'm trying to pass that on to others, just like you passed it on to me." The wind blows through the trees, and David sits quietly, feeling his father's presence, feeling his guidance, feeling his love. This is the real story, you see. It's not just about the moment in the boardroom. It's about what came after. It's about how David took the opportunity that he had earned and used it to create opportunities for others. It's about how one person's dedication to excellence and character can inspire thousands of other people to become the best versions of themselves. If you're watching this video, if you're listening to this story, I want you to understand something. You have more potential than you know. Your circumstances don't define your future. Your family background doesn't limit your possibilities. What matters is your willingness to work, your commitment to learning, your dedication to becoming excellent at whatever you do. Prepare yourself. Study. Learn. Work hard. Be kind to people. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. And when your opportunity comes, and it will come, be ready to take it. This is the lesson that Marcus taught David, and the lesson that David is now teaching thousands of young people around the world. This is the message that I want to share with you. that character and competence are more powerful than privilege, that hard work and preparation create opportunity, and that true success is measured not by how much you have, but by how many people's lives you've improved. Marcus Chun was a janitor, but he was one of the most successful men I've ever known. He was successful because he lived with dignity. He worked with excellence. He raised a son who understood that success should be used to help others. That's a legacy worth leaving. That's a life worth living. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, if it inspired you, please share it with others. Because this message, that we all have potential, that we all deserve respect, that we can all make a difference, this message needs to spread. This message needs to reach the young people who have been told they can't do better.